So Anna's out of town for the weekend, home alone with the cat, and I got most of the day to myself until this evening when I'm probably gonna go hang out with Anna's friends and watch the game. But I had a few things I wanted to do today, and I figured while I run around and do those, I would take the time to talk a little bit about my military service for a couple reasons. One, to demystify it, I realized that the military population as a whole, all of the branches combined, still make up a very, very, very small percentage of the American population. Among that, the Marine Corps is one of the smaller branches, and beyond that, my job was extremely specific and only accounted for an extremely, extremely small percentage of the Marine Corps. The Marine Corps has around, I think, 185,000, and there were only about 700 to 900 people with my job title. So I know when I joined and I got that job title, it was almost impossible to find information about it, figure out what exactly it entailed, what I could expect from my service, what deployment was going to be like for me, if at all, those kinds of things. I went to boot camp July 23rd of 2012. I graduated October 19th, and my job was military occupational specialty designator. It was 5711. That's a chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear defense specialist. Definitely a mouthful. That's why we just call ourselves CBRN, or CBRN for short. And that entailed a couple different things. So my primary job, very generally speaking, was to teach other Marines how to protect themselves against CBRN weapons. So chemical and biological weapons, weapons of mass destruction, nuclear bombs, things like that. That took up 80 to 90% of my time. And that was usually in a formal setting. The platoon I was in was relatively small, which I'm appreciative of. But we had a formal classroom that we taught these classes in, in a week-long course, and we did that week in and week out, month in, month out. Spent a lot of time formally teaching. And then the other 15 to 20% of my job involved hazmat, so hazardous materials. Hazmat, for anyone who doesn't know, is you might see it in the movies or out and about in public sometimes, but it's usually on the part of the fire department, and they have these big marshmallow looking suits that have tanks firemen use to breathe off of when they're in an oxygen deficient environment. You wear those inside of this big bubble suit that's airtight. So I did a lot of that. Were we to ever be deployed and something like that was needed, if I had to potentially go into a chemical environment and do testing, do sample collection, anything like that, retrieve casualties potentially, I would be federally certified by the DoD to wear that equipment, to employ it properly, and to enter and work in a contaminated environment. So that's a credential I still retain. I was really glad that I was able to get that, because it's very expensive for a civilian to get equivalent training that I had. So that's pretty tight. It's definitely on my resume. So that was most of it. So I did deploy. It absolutely wasn't on my terms. These days, with all the drawdowns, and we're slowly leaving Afghanistan and Iraq, with some exceptions, really the only thing, at least as far as the Marines go, the really only thing you can get on is a special MAGTF or a MEU, and I got put on a MEU. I replaced someone last minute who had severely injured himself, and that disqualified him from deploying. So I joined that unit, the MEU, like two and a half weeks before we deployed. So this ruined our wedding plans. We decided to get married just before I left, so luckily we were able to make that work, and that was all right. The deployment itself was a very interesting experience. It was definitely sucky at sometimes, but I'm really thankful that I had that opportunity and that experience. Got to see a lot of places, meet a lot of people, experience things that no one else will ever experience in their life. I did that for one enlistment, so 4 years, and I got out in July. But to anyone who's considering CBRN as a job title, which wouldn't be surprising because they're always hurting for bodies, and at this point they're probably giving out enlistment bonuses. I don't know. You'd have to check with a recruiter. I would say it's not as fabulous as it sounds, just like most job titles in the military. They definitely like to fluff them up for you. But it was pretty pleasurable. I learned a lot of stuff. The MOS school was definitely a little bit challenging, and I almost failed out of it, but I didn't. But it was a good time. CBRN community tends to be a little bit nerdy, which I like. Definitely people who are about learning and honing their craft and knowing as much as possible about that job title, which is kind of necessitated because the word specialist is in the job title, so everyone and their mother expects you to know damn near everything, or at least be able to bullshit it well. So that's that. I definitely don't regret my military experience at all. I still stand by my decision to leave after one enlistment, and having done one enlistment gave me a lot of respect for people who do 3, 4, 5 enlistments. They do 20 years. My previous boss, he enlisted the year that I was born, 1991. He's been doing it a damn long time, and he'll probably do it until they force him out at 30 years or whatever the cutoff is. I'm not sure. I think it's 30. And some people, you know, it's not for everyone, obviously. I just kind of jumped in head first. I wasn't really sure if it was gonna be right for me, but I was running with the wrong crowd when I joined and making not the best decisions, and I knew I needed a change. I wasn't sure what that change was, and I figured at the very least I would have a guaranteed job for 4 years. I think if I had to boil it down to 2 takeaways, they would be: 1, a sense of confidence that I gained. I think that specifically came from my job and having to like trial by fire, having to teach to sometimes 200 or 300 people at a time. And number 2, I would say, is a sense of camaraderie and brotherhood. And the friends you make in the military are more than friends, they're family, and the friends you make in the military are definitely friends for life. So at the end of the day, 10 out of 10 would recommend military service if you're considering it. If you watched this video to learn something, I hope you got something from it. I hope it was beneficial to you in some way. So that's that. Thanks for watching.